we all know Santa's not black, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Jesus is white, Santa's white.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is white anyway? I'm white.
George Lois, the legendary advertising executive and designer, is well known for the covers he created for Esquire magazine from 1962 through 1972, one of the most turbulent periods in American history. Many of the covers are drenched in controversy, such as a depiction of one-time heavyweight boxing champion Sonny Liston under a tasseled red and white Santa Claus hat.
It was a shock. It was looking for trouble. It was like a subversive cover.
It was really controversial. They lost hundreds of thousands in advertising revenue, all because in 1963 was a hot moment with racial tensions in America. This moment with putting, especially Sonny Liston, he's not just any black man. This is a much maligned black man. He's an ex-con, a thug, ties to the mob, and everybody knows him. He's a famous boxer. So by putting his face on the magazine as Santa Claus, it was said, I think in Time magazine, he's the last man you want to see come down your chimney.
Lois's covers make for a surrealistic carpet ride through the 1960s. The all-American kid, clutching a hamburger and a Coke, watching Jack Ruby blow away Lee Harvey Oswald. Jack Kennedy, his younger brother Bobby, and the Reverend Martin Luther King, all agents for change, all assassinated, joined together in martyrdom. Lois's covers convey simple yet stark messages that home in on America's hot-button issues: race, religion, politics, sex. He created a total of 92 covers for Esquire, always working solo with Esquire editor Harold Hayes. But contrary to conventional wisdom, Lois never worked at Esquire.
I have an ad agency all that time.
You were not a full-time employee.
I was
Yeah.
I only went to Esquire once in 10 years.
Okay, to the office.
Because they needed a ringer in a softball game.
The agency, Paper Koenig Lois, would go on to create some of the most memorable ad campaigns.
Thank you, Sam. That was fun.
And Hayes is reading about me, about this art director who's like a powerhouse, and he's young, and he's this. And he called me up to say, can we have lunch? Yeah. What can I do for you? Could you help me, tell me how I could do better covers?
His very first cover in October 1962 was a knockout, literally. A black model portraying then heavyweight boxing champion Floyd Patterson down for the count in what Lois calls a commentary on defeat. Patterson was heavily favored in his bout with challenger Sonny Liston, but Lois was convinced that Liston would destroy the champ. And he did, in the first round of the fight, just a few weeks after the cover ran. The cover generated the largest newsstand sales in Esquire's history. At the time, Esquire was deeply in debt. 4 years later, the magazine was raking in more than $3 million in profit, and annual circulation grew from 500,000 to 2.5 million. Hayes' bet on Lois had paid off handsomely.
I started him to do him a favor and to save the magazine. I told him almost from the beginning that I want to do a fun one, and then a kind of a exciting one, and then I want to do one where we get in trouble. And he said, you really know what you're doing? No, I said, yeah, I'm a marketing guy.
Some of Lois's most notorious covers sparked a backlash from his subjects, including this 1968 cover of an airbrushed Richard Nixon, just a few months before he would go on to win the Republican nomination for president. The cover marks a startling contrast to current magazine covers, which tend to worship celebrity, the last thing Lois would do.
George would take the celebrity and mess with their image and even people's idea of their celebrity to convey a message. And that was really part of his genius.
Lois remembers getting an irate phone call from Nixon's press secretary.
He calls me up, screaming at me. I said, listen, pal, what's your problem? What's the problem with it? I mean, that's a witty cover. This time he better look right. He better got that he lost because of his looks. And he said, I know what you left-wing sons of bitches are doing. What? You're trying to make him look like he's gay or like he's homosexual. He didn't say gay, like he's a homosexual.
Lois went to great lengths for many of his covers, including lobbying Elijah Muhammad, then the leader of the black Muslims, to allow his disciple Muhammad Ali to pose for the cover as the Christian martyr Saint Sebastian. At the time, Ali had been stripped of his heavyweight boxing title for refusing to fight in the Vietnam War, in a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court, where Ali was victorious.
To have George portray him as a Christian martyr on the cover of a magazine just kind of jabbed at all of those things all at once. The war, religion, and racism in one shot.
Another one of Lois's most notable covers is the late Andy Warhol drowning in a can of Campbell's soup from the May 1969 issue, a project that Lois recalls like it was yesterday.
I called him up and I said, Andy, I want to put you on the cover of Esquire. He said, and I hear him say, oh, everybody, George Lois is going to put me on Esquire. He's a cover of Esquire. Oh, well. And then, then he comes back and he says, now, George, I know you. What are you going to do to me? And I said, well, I'm going to have you drowning in a gigantic can of Campbell's soup. You're going to be drowning with your calling for help. And he said, oh, that's so clever. That's great. Are you going to have to build a giant can for me to go into?
He had a real knack in how he was crafting his message, and doing it with such a simplicity that you rarely find. Before Lois, you find a lot more illustrative work, hand-drawn, paintings even.
Lois bemoans today's magazine covers as playing it too safe, particularly considering all of the clutter on newsstands.
Lois's covers wouldn't have worked that strongly, when in fact it's the other way around. There's so many magazines that look the same. One of my magazines would absolutely leap out of the shelf, off the shelf, and grab you by the throat and choke you to death. Each and every cover should add to the imagery, to the greatness of your magazine.
Lois's covers played a major role in saving a great magazine. And with the covers safely stored in the Museum of Modern Art, his place in the history of magazine design is secure. And at age 77, he's still going strong. This is Matthew Schwartz for scribemedia.org.